I ended up being arrested, Laura. And because I spit on my husband in public, and we live behind a guarded gate. This was my pivotal moment when I knew I've reached a bottom, Laura, that was one that I can't even stand.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about the connection framework, paying it forward. And even though she knew she was a good wife, my guest Steph felt lonely and hopeless. She could feel her marriage slipping through her hands. Through that pain came an insight that set her in a new direction. Today, her marriage feels loving, respectful, and safe. She's going to share what she did so you can do it too. But first, let's talk about the connection framework pillar of paying it forward. There are 4 pillars that we've discovered are pivotal for wives fixing their marriage. The first pillar, number 1, is the treasure trove of wisdom known as the 6 intimacy skills. They're a collection of learned behaviors that help you become your best self so you can have the best relationship. The second pillar, number 2, is having a community of like-minded women for support. And number 3 is having a coach who's in your corner, but it doesn't tell you what to do because she doesn't know what you should do. Only you know that. Coaches help you see what's in your blind spot by sharing their own experiences and also asking powerful questions. But the number 4 pillar of the connection framework is paying it forward by sharing your own experience. And what we see on our campus is that this pillar of paying it forward helps you make quantum leaps in your marriage because it helps the intimacy skills stick. So if you're struggling to implement the 6 intimacy skills or wondering why you can't remember to use them, paying it forward is probably the missing link. I experienced the paying it forward piece of the connection framework shortly after I learned the 6 intimacy skills by asking happy wives what their secrets were, which I did out of desperation to save my marriage. And I started experimenting with the things that they were doing, and they worked when I used them. But I couldn't always get myself to use them. And it wasn't until I started sharing my story with other women that I got a breakthrough with being able to implement them myself. Hearing myself talk about the intimacy skills and feeling accountable to the women I was encouraging helped me have my own miracle of being able to become my best self, to change my habits. For example, one of the women that I recruited to do the intimacy skills with me, Lisa, complained that her husband was so dumb because he threw out a toy that the kids still loved. And she was stuck with those unhappy kids when he went to work. So she let him know what a big mistake he made and how upset she was with him for doing that. And it started a fight. So she felt that she was in the right. And I could see why she felt that way. But there was this tension at her house, and her whole family was suffering. They weren't even talking, she and her husband, and there was certainly no laughter or cuddling. And I didn't know what she should do, but I could relate to feeling like I was right and still wanting to restore the peace at my house. So I shared a story about how I had apologized to John for being disrespectful when I criticized him for not helping enough with the housework. Even though I felt that I was right, I still didn't think he was helping enough. And then I asked Lisa how it would be for her to apologize to her husband for being disrespectful when she criticized him, even though she felt she was right. And she said that she thought she could experiment with trying that. Now, a few days later, I felt myself wanting to criticize John again for guess what? The housework. I had this bad habit of doing that, but it wasn't serving me. And this time I stopped myself before those unpleasant words got out of my mouth. Why? Well, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. When I told Lisa my story about how I had apologized for being disrespectful to John for doing the very thing that I was about to do, I created a guardrail for myself. I felt accountable to her to do what I was encouraging her to do. Be respectful. I knew how I wanted to show up in my marriage, and criticizing John was not it. Now, I was no expert on the 6 intimacy skills at that time. I was just starting out and I was terrible at them. I mean, picture the sound of someone just starting to learn the saxophone for the first time, right? That was me. But I had a little story, and telling it helped another woman, and it helped me more than I could have imagined. Without that, I wouldn't have had that clarity. If I hadn't heard it coming out of my own mouth that I was working on being more respectful because I liked how dignified and clean I felt. And if someone hadn't witnessed that, I would have not been able to stop myself from doing the same old, same old. And without that story, there wouldn't be a change in my behavior. So I kept going, sharing my stories and listening to the stories from other women. And that's how I got the miracle that I have now in my marriage, where I feel loved, I feel desired, I feel taken care of and special every day. And that's more than ever. And it's been over 20 years since I first started learning to play the saxophone. Of course, sometimes your story feels too tender to share with just anybody. And that's one of the reasons we provide coaches. So you have a safe place to share your stories. And believe me, coaches get inspired by what their clients share with them. We have a coaches meeting every month to share stories from students because they are so inspiring. And of course, all the students in our programs are part of our private community where they can pay forward what they've learned by sharing with other students. So that's one way to give yourself a place to pay forward what you're learning in a program with a coach. And another way is to be a guest on this podcast. I love hearing about students having that as their vision, to be a guest on the podcast and share their story, to take a victory lap, right? What a great way to envision yourself succeeding in your marriage, right? I'm sharing about it on the podcast. But the guests on this show, they don't have a perfect marriage, and the host doesn't either. We don't always use the 6 intimacy skills, or at least I don't. And coming on the Empowered Wife podcast as a guest just means you've had some success to share, something that will inspire others, something for you to celebrate. If you have even a little bit of success, I invite you to come on the show and amplify that, even if you think you have more to do before you're ready. I wasn't ready either. I had plenty of room to grow. And telling my little story, it helped me get there. Another way to pay it forward is to share with a woman who's hurting in her marriage. There are so many, right? Unfortunately, there are still so many. And it feels so purposeful and amazing to be able to share something to give such a woman hope when she may be completely out of it, completely out of hope. Sharing your story can change her life. No joke. You may not have your marriage all figured out, but we all have to start somewhere. And your story has the power to inspire, uplift, and change the world. You can share it anonymously as a book review or a podcast review or on a platform like Reddit, which, by the way, I've been seeing lots of you doing that lately, and I appreciate all that. I appreciate the reviews on the books and the podcasts and the platforms like Reddit. So thank you so much. Telling your story gives you a way to put your arms around your own experience and carry it with you so that it doesn't just slip away. It becomes part of your DNA when you share it. Of course, it takes courage to tell your story. It's not for the faint of heart to come on this show, come on this podcast, but fortune favors the brave. And I'm just so grateful and happy that over 200 brave guests have come on this show to share their stories. And some use a pseudonym and some use their real name. Maybe you'll be next. I'm standing for you. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. Even though she knew she was a good wife, my guest Steph felt lonely and hopeless. She could feel her marriage slipping through her hands. Through that pain came an insight that set her in a new direction. Today, her marriage feels loving, respectful, and safe. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Steph, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to hear your whole story today on the podcast.
Hi, Laura. I'm thrilled to be here. It's an honor. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, take us back to the bad old days. What was going wrong?
Okay, so the bad old days, they looked like, I think the nucleus of it, Laura, was that I wanted somebody else to make me happy because I really didn't know how to make myself happy. So we'll start from there. I was a showgirl, had a great career I was loving life, and then the man of my dreams walked into my life, and I have never had more respect for another human being than this man that walked into my life. He literally saved lives for a living. He was an Air Force bomber pilot. I mean, the respect for me was on an all-time high. And what happened for me was I know now, and I'm going to go back to the ugly days because it's different now, but I want to go back to when I was so controlling, Laura, because the underlying fear that I was actually manifesting, unbeknownst to me until I met you, was that I was afraid. I was always afraid that maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not really enough for this guy. He is so experienced. He has done so many things with his life. And really, what have I done, right? I mean, I have an education, I have a couple degrees, but really, he intimidated me a little. So I kind of went in with that an attitude. So what I did is I flipped it in the wrong way, and I had an inferiority complex. And I was always afraid. Laura. And so you've taught me, I've learned through the skills that when you live like that, what other choice do you have but to be in control? I mean, from the time he left his office at night, he was helping patients, doing surgeries, whatever he does, right? If it was 5:30 and he wasn't home, Laura, I was on it. Where are you? And I didn't realize, I really thought that was okay because it was all I really knew how to be. I didn't know how to be any other way, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, and I've learned since, boy, was I suffocating this human being who walked into the marriage good and kind, a good man who loved me, has done the right things by me, and my control escalated. It escalated to a point where I was actually, if you fast forward a little bit, through all my control, I ended up being arrested, Laura. And because I spit on my husband in public, and we live behind a guarded gate. This was my pivotal moment when I knew I've reached a bottom, Laura, that was one that I can't even stand. Okay, so we live with a guarded gate, and there's a young lady that works there, and she's on my payroll. And my husband and I had found out that he had an infidelity, and I spit on him at the gate, and she saw it. About 10 minutes later, 2 police officers came to my front door. This one right over here. Hi, are you Stephanie? And I go, yeah, hi, come on out. I'm like, yeah, what's up? Did you spit on your husband at the gate? I go, yes. Do you know what he did? They said, turn around, please. They handcuffed me, Laura. I didn't have shoes on my feet.
Oh,
At first I kind of thought, well, it's kind of a joke. Then I sat in the car. Laura, I don't come from this kind of a family. I grew up where my dad and my mom worked hard. I mean, my mom is a Louisville, Kentucky, right? She loves her babies, man. She is a mama bear. I came up with a lot of love, a lot of respect. This isn't how I was raised. I'm in the back of a police car, handcuffed, and no shoes on, Laura, and I can laugh about it now.
Oh,
But I was sitting back there and on my way to the police station,
oh,
and all the proceedings happened. They mugged me, and I'm like, are you kidding
wait.
me? Like, I spit on him. I'm being arrested. Is this really a real true law? I
I
think
mean,
he's getting off easy. Yeah,
you couldn't get out of this. I mean, that was in your mind, you're thinking, well, this is like a warning, or they're gonna, and then
yeah,
maybe your husband's gonna say, like, oh, no, no, it's fine, or something.
absolutely. Absolutely, Laura. I thought, okay, you're just kind of giving me a little run through because I mean, I spit on him. Yes, that's horrible. I don't advocate it or think it's right, but in lieu of the crime that was committed to me, hello. So yes,
Yeah.
no, and
Yeah.
what's booked? Oh, Laura, it was bad. Yes, I.
This is not really happening, but it was really happening.
This
Yeah.
isn't really happening. But what happened to me was interesting because on the way over there, I had a little awakening, Laura, because what I realized, and I was soon to find you hereafter, but what I realized is, you know, I'm not the kind of person that spits. What is wrong with what has happened to me, Laura? What's happened to Stephanie, the girl that used to be so vivacious and a leader and an inspiration to people? I've been sober a long time. I'm doing this sober, Laura. I can't even blame it on a couple cocktails, right? I'm at the jail advocating for women as part of something I do. And here I am, handcuffed, show up. And I said, okay, you got two things you can do here, Steph. You can make this work for you in your life. And you can help somebody else who ended up here. Or you can really let this take you down because it was demoralizing. Long story short, I walked into the jail. They put me in a male female holding cell, and I was being harassed by the males. So they moved me to solitary confinement, my friend Laura.
Oh,
I was there for 24 long hours,
oh,
no windows. It was freezing, and I was in that solitary confinement, and I had a lot of time to think. And
oh.
what I thought was, with all that I have been blessed with in my life, from my parents to intelligence to everything that God has given me, what have I done to end up here? So I really thought long and hard. I got out of there and I called my only friend that I had left because really all I did at this point was cry about what was wrong and happening in my life. Every friend I had was kind of moving away because I was crying about my husband and he's so mean. He's this, he's done this, he's done that right for me. My last friend left. Her name was Rachel, and she's still a friend, good friend. And she said, "Look, have you had enough yet?" And I said, "Oh yeah, oh I certainly have." She goes, "I have an idea for you. You've tried everything, Laura. I had my rosary blessed by the Pope to pray on it to change my marriage. You name it, Laura, I've done it. I mean, let's go to the coast of Italy and relax for a minute. That'll be the ever. I'll do it. I'll do it. Please, God, help me." Right? She says to me something. She goes, "There's this book. You can get it on Amazon. There are a couple I suggest for you." Now, this is a very good friend of mine. She says there's the empowered wife and there's the surrendered wife. And but Stephanie, even before you get that book, I strongly suggest for you, you go to what they call Ridiculously Happy Wives. It's this podcast they have, and you can join month by month. And I'm listening to her going, I have tried everything. And I'm thinking this, I'm not saying it, Laura, because remember, she's my only buddy left.
Yeah.
I think, okay, I don't want her to abandon me. I got to listen to her. So my intro was, I decided, okay, my books aren't here yet. I'll sign up for this silly RHW, Ridiculously Happy Wives. I mean, yeah, hello, I've just been arrested. I'm not that happy, ladies.
No.
So, all right. So I show up to my
And your husband just had an infidelity. Like that's
yeah,
right.
yes,
Like,
I am exactly. And I'm thinking, part of me's thinking he got away with it easy. I could have done more. And the
right.
other part of me, right, is really reckoning with who I am. What happened to me, Laura? Like, this isn't me. I don't have children, but I don't want to tell my beautiful nieces and nephews, this isn't me. How can I turn this around, Laura? How can I make this an asset rather than a liability for me? Because this is ugly stuff. Okay. So I go to my first Ridiculously Happy Wives podcast, and I don't know, there's 100 women there, and oh boy, I'm listening and I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh, I hope nobody knows me here. Like, I'm nobody anyway, but I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed to be here.
Yeah.
But what happened for me, Laura, was kind of the beginning of the miracles that were going to happen to me here with you. And one of them was when the hour was up and I turned my iPad off, I thought, I feel better than I felt in a long time, but that's a fluke. That's just a
That's a
fluke. This doesn't work. Don't get excited,
coincidence.
girl. Right, right. don't get excited. This is just a fluke. And then I looked, I go, there's another meeting at 4 o'clock today. There's another ridiculously happy wives meeting at 4. I have nothing to lose. My husband's gone. He's divorcing me. I mean, I've got a
Oh,
record now. I mean, what do I have to lose? I may as well show up
oh,
again.
wow.
Laura, showed up.
He's divorcing you? He's divorced.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, this is over,
this is
man.
why
Yeah.
he didn't come and bail you out real quick out of
No,
jail.
no, I took a Uber home. Yeah, no,
Oh,
no, yeah, yeah. So, right. So, I show up again at 4 because, well, why not?
you're going to go to another group call
I'm
because,
going to go to another
okay,
group
why not? Why
call.
not? Okay.
That's right. And ever since I've met you, it's been one miracle after another, I have to say. And I was in a desperate and hopeless and lonely place, Laura. And as you eloquently put it, safe is an adjective that I have used my whole life. It has been something I've been seeking my whole life, Laura. And I finally found it because when I work steps, Laura, it's not in my man, it's not in my nieces or my mama. When I work the skills, I become safe. I
Mhm.
never had it before. So I go to the 4 o'clock, and by golly, there's Coach Tammy on there, and she's telling a little bit of her story. And I'm thinking, well, by golly, we can all lie, but you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Now I know that, okay? She's transmitting peace, a calm, an inner dignity, and her surroundings aren't perfect. And I'm thinking, she ain't lying, Laura. She ain't lying. What does that woman have? Okay, so my second meeting, I then found out I could get a private coach. And I'm like, okay, this thing's going to work for me. And the reason it's going to work is because I'm a dying woman walking. My husband is leaving me. I'm losing everything. And it is slipping through my hands. And I cannot stop it. And I love this man, Laura. Like, this is the love of my life. This is not a guy that is going to be easily forgotten. Okay. But I messed it up. Okay. You don't take a physician and a bomber pilot and somebody like that and spit in their face in public, because what you've taught me, Laura, is that, somebody's sin isn't necessarily worse than mine. You see, it just isn't. And I went in with that attitude, Laura. I went in thinking that my sins are not as black as his, by golly. And I, in some way, must teach him this lesson. But what I really ended up doing was learning the lesson of abandonment, learning the lesson of loneliness to the degree I never knew it. Went to that second meeting at 4 o'clock, located that post where you people can get coaches.
Yeah.
And it's another miracle, Laura. Coach Tammy, I found this out later. She doesn't have availability. It's very booked. But she's the one I kind of resonated with, right? She had an availability. I booked it. I booked my first coaching, and oh my God, this is so amazing. When she showed up, she goes, how did you get in? I didn't have any openings. I go, I don't know. You were there. I popped it. Here I am. She's been my coach for over a year now. And I have to say, my instincts were right. She guides me. I'm all in, Laura. I'm all in. And so knowing you and learning the skills, what happened for me is I not only just listened, I decided that I'm going to take the advice that someone like you might give me. Participate in your own recovery, girl. Start sharing a little win. Okay, it might be a win that you didn't cry today because your husband's gone, or you're feeling a little better. You start doing a little self-care. You don't know if he's coming back, Steph. But guess what you did today? You had a little fun. See, those were little things for self-care that were starting to change me. And they weren't so little now that I look back, Laura. They just weren't so little.
They weren't little. It was
They
big.
weren't little.
It was big to being in this pit of despair. Your life is falling apart. You don't even recognize yourself, and you're not sure how it's ever going to get better.
That's right.
To
That's right.
finding the courage to make yourself have a little fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a small win. It's a huge win.
That's right. That's right. And like you said earlier, I was like, the man that is good and kind and the man I truly love is falling through my hands. And I know that doesn't come around a lot in life. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's not everyday occurrence. And so it was a big loss. And I was pretty scared. And you were the safe place for me to land. You were a place for me where I could get well. And the skills have done that for me. Because now, Laura, regardless of what other people are doing, look, I came in with the deep desire to save my marriage. I'll do anything you say, Laura. I want to save my marriage. And my marriage is saved. I got my marriage. But Laura, what you did for me, what the skills have done for me, more importantly than that, is that I walk a free woman today because the skills have given me dignity within myself, self-esteem, And the most of all is I have a changed perception. I do not perceive the world, my husband, and other things like I used to, the things that hurt me and the things that made me stay stuck and unavailable and unable to have a flourishing marriage.
Mm.
Look,
Wow.
I always knew, Laura, that we have some sort of control in our mind and our actions, but I didn't know how to get from A to B with that until you taught me the skills.
Wow. Well, it's amazing. I think what I hear you saying is that you feel safe in your own skin now. You're safe with Steph. So therefore it gives you these superpowers really to show up in your marriage differently. And okay, but let's go back a little bit so you were in jail, he's cheated, he's leaving you, there's a divorce. How did it get back? What did you do? Like, how did you get your marriage back?
Okay. Oh yeah, that's the most important part, because what I did is I took my girlfriend Rachel's advice. I decided to join this, even though I didn't know if I was going to be a wife anymore. Sure, I'll join it. Ridiculously happy wives, but I'm not even going to be a wife, right? But I'll join it. I have nothing to lose. So
you really thought it was over. You thought you didn't really think there was hope.
No, I did not. But it was kind of at that place where you do or die. It's like, what do you have to lose? So
yeah,
I didn't want to lose Rachel, okay, my friend. And I knew that I couldn't continue to cry to her because my pattern had been just sobbing. So my husband was gone. I didn't know where he was, if he was coming back. There was no communication. And I dug into these skills. I went to as many RHW classes as I could. I went to every podcast. I hired myself a coach. And I hired her as often as I could. I mean, just weekly at that point, because I knew it would help me. Okay, I got to get out of this alive kind of feeling. I read all of your books. I read them several times. And I started to feel hope, I started to feel like, okay, we still don't have any communication. I don't know if he's leaving. I don't know what he's doing. And at times, of course, it would scare me, Laura. Of course, at times my stomach would just sink. But I knew at this point by the skills and listening to your podcasts and stuff, I can't control another person, but I can control what I do. I can start showing up differently. So fast forward, I'm alone. I'm living in the house with my 3 German Shepherds. And the unknown is very hard for me. It's like, just give me the known. Just let me know what's going to happen. And I'm okay with that, right? I don't know what's happening. I don't get any papers in the mail. But the last he said is it's over. He's divorcing me. So, okay. And I have to take it at his word. So months later, I'm working the skills. I'm going to every meeting I can. I'm being coached, practicing relinquishing control, staying on my own side of the page, my own paper. And I'm learning that that's really where my power is beginning to flourish, because I'm really learning that regardless of what my husband at the time was doing, staying on my own paper is where I'm going to be free. I started to learn that in the midst of the tsunami. So I was starting to feel empowered, but still very lonely and sad. About several months later, I got a text from my husband out of the blue. And it said something to, I hope you're okay. It was just, it was kind of like, I don't remember exactly what it said, Laura, but my stomach sank and I didn't respond. I called Rachel because she was working the skills. And I said, I got a text. Please give me the Laura Doyle apology. I'm not sure how to write it or do it yet, but show me how. Help me write it out. She took her time. In 30 minutes, we wrote this out.
So humble, Stephanie. Like, help me say the right words.
And they didn't make sense to me at that time still, because it was like, wow, I'm taking a lot of ownership here. Okay, but do it. Because I was willing, Laura, to do it anyway. Okay.
But I mean, let's review for a second. He's cheated on you. He's left you. He left you in jail. He's divorcing you. I mean, it's like, it's unreal. That's unreal. Like, where are you finding this courage and this humility? You want to apologize to him. So you're not resentful at this time.
At this time, the resentment, it was subsided because the agony and pain superseded it. Like, I realized, Laura, I realized at this point that I had done wrong, that I was looking at the errors of my way. Every time I would hear your podcast, every time I would go to the Ridiculously Happy Wives podcast, I would hear somebody say something that I could identify with. And I was like, but I did that too. And that's what pushed him away. See, I I wasn't a free agent. I wasn't guilt free here. I did harm. I did a lot of harm. And that's why I could easily apologize because I had a big side of the street.
I mean, that is so painful, right? To come to that. It's awful,
Hmm.
agonizing to come to, and yet here you are nodding your head and saying, yeah, it is.
Yep,
And and it's mine. I own that.
that's right.
That's where I want to stand.
Your apologies have taught me that that's where a lot of freedom resides for me. I just didn't have that concept of life before I met your program, before I had the skills. I didn't understand that when I own it, I actually get to be free regardless of what that other person does. See, if I got that opportunity to apologize the specific Laura Doyle way, not the Stephanie way, okay, not the I'm sorry, but way, but the actual Laura Doyle way, then I would have a shot at least saying my part and saying, I'm truly apologizing for and what I did. And I was very specific. And that apology got a response and a very humble one, I might add. Just like, I think
Really?
she said something like, yes, like, wow. Because that was unlike anything I'd ever done before. I'm full of apologies, Laura. But really, where's the change? And where is the real apology of admitting what you really did? See, I took his dignity at that gate and I stole that gate, even though she's my employee. I robbed her of peace of mind with my actions, and I apologize to her too. Because you see, I'm not mad at her. She did me a favor. She did something for me. She arrested me. And you know what? I thank her for that because the real deal is this. That was a personal bottom, Laura, that I needed to have the freedom I have today here with you right now. Had to
Oh
happen.
my gosh. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Let's just sit with that for a second. You thanked her for having you arrested.
I
You
did.
so what I hear you saying is you had to lose to understand, and that understanding led to something more precious than
That and I didn't know if he was coming back, but I know that Laura Doyle, and I specify this, and I say this because I talk to girls in the program. Said it's very important not to reinvent the wheel here. Like I'm a really creative girl. I have a degree in film. I got it. I got how to do this. But the thing is, this is no place to be creative, and I found that through trial and error. So that very specific Laura Doyle apology was the beginning of bringing my husband back to me for sure.
wow. I love it. You got a good response. Like there was connection, there was some tenderness, it sounds like.
That's right.
His and that must have been such an incredible moment, very exciting moment.
It was an incredible moment where I really saw that I knew the skills were working for me, but I actually saw them soften my marriage. I saw it really happen in real time. Yeah.
Well, and this was after you'd been doing a lot of work. You'd been going to the Ridiculously Happy Wife group calls and listening to podcasts, and you'd been really
Private coach, whatever you had to
yeah,
offer.
private
I
coach.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and reading the books. I mean, so you were doing it, so you had tremendous focus on really fixing Stephanie was what was
that's
happening.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And and it's almost like that, even his text when he said, I hope you're okay. It's almost like he was picking up on your energy somehow, that something had shifted
No
because
doubt.
there was no communication before that.
That's right. That's right. And you say it best. I mean, intellectually, I know what's in has to come out, but that's okay. That's all good. But if you don't have a skill to hone in on to do the actual change from A to B, you're like me. You're screwed because excuse my language, but you're in for trouble. I had to know what skills to access that. I know what to do. I don't know how to access it. That was always my dilemma.
Yeah. 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 And you wanted all the things. You wanted the dignity and you wanted to be feel more confident and you wanted to feel loved. And
That's
and
right.
this was the A to B part that was missing. So, and I love that you're a creative girl, but you decided to just stick to the script. Like, I'm just going to follow this recipe to the T and
Mhm.
see what happens. And you got a great response. So, well, okay. So what happened after that? So you apologized. He responded. So there's an opening.
There's an opening, and I had the opportunity to relinquish control. in the real way and not ask, are you coming back? Do you still love? No, 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 no. None of those things. I learned by then.
You didn't
Let
ask any of that? None of that.
none of that. I wasn't doing any of it. I was practicing these skills. I had that text, and then he texted me again, and I was just I had the opportunity to practice the skills on texting. And I remember thinking, oh, I want to ask so badly, what's your plan? But I didn't, because I trusted your process. I trusted that giving him space, relinquishing control would be the only thing in my life I've never done. And my way doesn't work, Laura. So best it be I to try something new. And so I did.
Yeah.
And it was a few days later, I got another text that said, I would love to come home. Would that be okay? Yeah, yeah. I called Rachel immediately. I was like screaming, oh my gosh. So,
Touchdown.
right? Yeah, exactly. The happy dance for sure. Like, oh my gosh. And so my text back was, of course, I would love nothing more. You know, it was like in that vein. And then he came home, and then my, things have just progressed. I have stayed very close to this. I have never thought, well, I got my miracle. I'm out of here. Oh, no, 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 no. I will be here for life. This is a lifer for me, because of myself, by myself, of my own devices, I don't do well. I need to continue to practice. There's a reason you, I'm sure, say practice these skills. It's like the piano. I can't just pick it up for a month and think I'm a pianist, right?
Right.
I
That's
must
right.
practice these skills every day, and I do, and I'm never letting them go because of the transformation that I've personally had. Yeah.
It's so inspiring, Steph. I'm so impressed. I got to ask, though, was there ever a moment where you thought, okay, now I'm going to let him know how much he hurt me, or now I'm going to also, like a little, just mere mortal woman temptation to punish him, or, make him pay for, because I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. There was a time where I thought about, like, asking him, starting the State of the Union, if you will. And I did, and it wasn't going well. But what I've always, my favorite thing actually are apologies, because I don't make a lot of them, but when I'm in the wrong and I make that, it always makes it right if I just back off. So what is that Oliver Holmes said? One's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions.
that's a great quote.
It
Yeah.
is. And I stick to that because that is true. See, once I've learned these, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I need to continue to practice it. But I was caught in the moment of saying, do I want to go here? Is it worth it, Stephanie? Is it worth your intimacy? And also, is it worth you feeling safe in your life and prospering in your marriage and being happy? Well, of course it's not, because I'm no angel. I've done things as well. Not that, but I've done other things. And that's when you go back to, gratitude, which was the first skill that I picked up, I must tell you. And there is a very, very profound thinker, and she said, gratitude has magical powers. It turns an ordinary man into your hero. And that is by Laura Doyle. And that gives me cold chills, because that is the truth of gratitude. That is how it works.
And now
Yeah.
you have your hero home with you, and beautiful. What is your marriage like today?
Today, we live in a very peaceful, loving, respectful, but passionate. We deeply love each other. It's kind of like, when you go through things and you stick it out, if you could just hang in there, it's better than you could ever have imagined, because you realize that somebody really loves you in your darkest moment, right? Not when you're just the cool breeze, you're doing everything right, but if they really love you when you're down in your darkest time, there's a rebound that comes with that is, I'm speechless to say, I don't know the adjective to describe it other than miraculous.
That sounds like some incredible inner strength to be loved no matter what, just for who you are. He
Mm-hmm.
knows through and through, and it's you that he's crazy about above everybody
That's
else.
right. And seeing the transformation, I think he's mentioned this. He says this on his own. It's nothing shy of miraculous. He said to me the other day, in fact, I would love you and stay married to you, even with the way it was. But what's happening and what's happened with these skills is absolutely miraculous. And this is not a man who walks around, flippantly saying things. And I took it right to my heart and I took it as a win. And I thought, thank you.
Yes, you took it in. You received it graciously and you let it edify you and feel and you bring you joy.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
the full celebration of what you've accomplished and what you created in that moment. Just inspiring, so beautiful. And what about so to a woman who's maybe where you were, where he's been unfaithful and she found out about it and she's furious and she's heartbroken and she's um kind of righteously angry, right? I mean, it's fair to
Mm-hmm.
be angry about that. But she wants what you have now, where he just loves you to the ends of the earth. And let me ask you too: do you ever worry that he's going to cheat on you again?
No.
Never.
In fact, those thoughts don't even enter. And I didn't know that was possible either because I thought, gosh, I'll always live with this in the back of my
That's
mind.
right. You're always going to
I
have to
thought
worry.
that I did.
Yeah.
But transformation works as you will. That's no, you know it better than anyone. Once a transformation occurs, the entire environment changes. See, I wasn't, see, the part I played is that I was very demasculating. I was very insulting in my own ways. I'm not a malignant person, but I was very arrogant. I was, oh, I'm all that. You're lucky, whatever. It
Yeah.
resided in the back of my mind. And if you do anything, I got a suitcase waiting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and the other transforming thing I don't want to leave out is that I read that chapter and I just read it over and over because it changed my life. Was getting off the fence. Because when I read that, Laura, I thought, well, what do you mean? I'm not on the fence. I'm a faithful, good wife, right? Like you had read in the beginning, the preamble. I
Yeah.
really, I really thought that.
Yeah.
But when I read that article, that chapter over and over, I thought, no, no, actually, I wasn't. I wasn't. I was on the fence, and I was suffering as a result of it. And what made me get off the fence was when we went all through a lot of what we've gone through, and I got into the skills, and I decided I was in a coaching call with Tammy, and I had an awakening again. I said to myself, it doesn't really matter what he does. I choose him. My
Mm.
heart loves this man. Okay,
Mm.
I'm in my marriage. It's time to be honest with yourself, Steph. Okay, unload the mental suitcase. Okay, if somebody does something, because the real deal is I'm in. I'm
Oh,
already in the marriage because I truly do love this person, and I want to hang on to that, and I want to do what I can to be the best wife, show up with dignity, be fun, sexy, and all those things we can be, and authentic at the same time. So I decided at that moment, I got off the fence and I decided that, part of marriage is a ministry. Whoever they lied to me when they said it's all roses. It's not always that. But people get sick,
yeah.
people have moods. But you taught me, let him go to his cave. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. People need their own time. I don't need to suck their oxygen like I only knew to do that. That's how I thought somebody loved me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
getting off the fence was a big moment for me
I
when
mean,
I
I love this because, and it's understandable because in a way, once he's already said, I'm divorcing you,
yeah.
in some ways it feels like, well, it's not up to me. I don't have to decide if I'm in or out really because he's doing the deciding. So I can sort of outsource that decision making at this time. It's not,
That's right. And your skills also told me, okay, I won't add to it. I won't make that easier. I'm not going to go down and, get it going.
no.
I'm going to sit back, work the skills like my life depends on it and my marriage because it really did. And that's what I did. And it worked. And, I have friends, Laura, that have been divorced and divorce is overrated.
Ugh,
People
so
don't get,
overrated.
Laura, what they think they're going to get, right? They don't.
No,
So I'm
no.
in for saving marriages. I want mine saved. And if I could help any woman, you better believe I will give back what I have been so generously given.
You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. So many women are listening and thinking, "Oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get out of this? He was unfaithful. He's the bad one. He's the person who's divorcing me, and there's nothing I can
Mm-hmm.
do about that." And you're here to
Right.
say, actually, actually, it was in my hands. The whole thing was in my
Mhm.
hands.
That's right. That's right. And you taught me that through taking accountability and responsibility for my part, because that's really where my resentment lessened. Because the more I wrote down on paper what I did, Laura, the more I realized it was so disrespectful. I was so disrespectful, Laura,
But
to
you
the
didn't
person I
know.
love.
You didn't
Oh,
know.
I
You
did
had no
not know.
idea. No
I
one
did not
taught you.
know. Mm-mm.
No.
And like you said earlier, I mean, like his sins are not blacker than mine. They're just different.
Yeah.
Just different. That's all.
Yeah. And
It
now
hurt
that you
my
know
husband a
better.
lot. Yeah. I hurt him a
Yeah.
lot with ways. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I mean, it is always when you're hurt, when you're in pain, it's incredibly hard to open your eyes so wide and just look at what you might have contributed to. I mean, that is, I always just find that so admirable and inspiring. Any woman who's able to do that. But I think, your story just reminds me of, it's such a story. It's an expansive story of what's possible.
Mhm.
And it reminds me of the story of Roger Banner, running the very first under 4 minute mile. And it couldn't be done before that. No one could do it. And then he did it. He ran it in under 4. And then as soon as he did it, other people were able to do it too. And your story, he cheated on me. He was going to divorce me and I was arrested. And
Mhm.
now my marriage is amazing. So it's possible. It is possible. And it's really contagious around our campus, right? To be able to hear a story like that, you can get it on. You're like, well, if Roger Banner could do it, if Steph could do it, then maybe I can do it too. It is possible.
It's
Uh,
absolutely possible, Laura. It's
yeah.
absolutely possible. And something else I did that really assisted me in this is I decided to take a sabbatical from friends who had opinions other than the one I was trying to. I surrounded myself with people in RHW where they're for marriage. If you want to cry, you cry to them. If they don't tell you to leave, they say, okay, what can we do? What skill is this? I picked out people who are doing this to help me because I needed help and it really served me well, very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you have such a big heart to pay it forward too. It's really a big mission of yours to end
Mhm.
world divorce now by sharing what you have this experience. It is some experience, right? It's not
Mhm.
nothing. And you're able to share firsthand. And it's kind of like what you described with Coach Tammy. When people hear you talk, they know that this is real. What you have is real because they can pick up on that. So
Yeah.
so what is your tip for somebody who is down in the dumps and just resentful and thinks it's hopeless and wants what you have now?
My I know how that feels and it doesn't have to be that way. If I can do this, you can do this. I put a lot of time into the skills and reading and I one thing I did too is I just stayed quiet and I listened. I let your information on these podcasts come in without rebuting it in my mind. I decided just to do something entirely different, right? These skills will work for you. They absolutely will if you work them, if you practice them and don't give up. I mean, I've had so many times where I take 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, but I was taught early on these are bumps in the road, Steph. They're not disasters. They're life. They're called life. They're bumps in the road. And there's always a skill or several skills to get me out of that spot back to the place of dignity because I am a mere mortal woman.
Sure.
And I do make lots of mistakes, but I don't make the grave mistakes I used to, Laura.
Hmm.
Right? That's key, right?
Yeah.
I embrace my being a human being. Okay, I'm gonna hurt people accidentally. They're gonna hurt me. Life happens. But the stronger I practice these skills, the more they're infused within me, the
Yeah.
less likely I am to act out or it hurt me deeply and blow me over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're stronger now. You're stronger and better. And you were open. I just hear you were very, very open,
Mm-hmm.
which is, yeah, it just takes a lot of courage, really, to not be so attached to the way you always thought it should work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you had to do and what you did a beautiful job of, which I love. And so, and you don't have any kids.
No.
So, how is this, you having this transformation though, affected the relationships you have with other family members and Right.
It's affected everyone. The way that I respond and the way that I interact with my two brothers and my sister, they live there in Newport. I I show up with respect, and I see where to use it. I see where to encourage people rather than take down. I My whole relationship with my brothers has completely changed.
Really?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like and the reason I know this is because they don't say anything, but they text me and call me so much more than they used to. Yeah, I'm
See
fun
more
to talk
connection with
to.
them.
Right, right. I'm their little sister, and I mean, we have they call me so much more than they ever did. Right.
Wow. That must
Mother,
feel so
she's just
good.
the best supporter. She's just like so happy for me.
I
My
bet.
mom's in awe. And Laura, it's so cute because she's not in the program, but she'll say things to my sister like, "You need to get on your own paper. Get off your husband's paper." She'll say things like, "Oh, Laura, you be listen to her go. Listen to her go." So I mean, it like we said earlier, it's like once that happens, everyone benefits.
Yeah. It changed.
Everyone wins, Laura.
There's all these waves that kind of go out and affect everybody in your circle, it sounds like.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Everyone benefits for
I love
sure.
that. I love that. So,
Yeah.
if you could go back in time and tell yourself what you know now, what do you think you'd say to yourself?
Boy, I would. Okay, so what came to my mind is you could have had more fun and not cried so much while you were waiting or while you were the unknown. Um,
Oh,
I think
that's sweet.
I would have tried to enjoy my days more.
Mm.
Because I at the beginning I started to in the middle of working these skills, but at the beginning I was working on them. My life depended on them. I was very scared, very scared.
Well, sure. It is scary.
I
It's
didn't know I was going to be okay either way. And I think that's the gift you've given me is that I, Stephanie, am okay regardless of what's happening on my peripheral. And I was always affected by what he did or didn't do. My day would depend on it. And I didn't know how to shift that, Laura. Until you taught me the skills, I did not know how to shift it.
so
No.
if you, I mean, I love that. That's an incredible achievement. But if you start to feel that coming up now, right? Maybe the old whatever it was comes back and you start
Mhm.
thinking, well, why isn't he? It's 5:30. Why isn't he home?
Mhm.
What do you do now?
Oh, that's interesting. Because, yeah, life happens.
Yeah.
I feel good. Okay, this is where I used to be. I used to be afraid and controlling, right? I don't do any of that. I go, look, I know who I am. I am a great wife. I love him and I am a lot to lose. And he always comes back. I don't need to do that. And because Laura, I don't want it done to me either.
Mhm.
Got to give people their freedom. I was scared to do that. Okay. So now it looks like I'm okay. If he's late, I'm okay. He's got a client, he's got a patient, something's going on. It's not always about me. In fact, it rarely is.
Mm.
Rarely is.
So this trust just kind of comes out of you now. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of white knuckling to get to that.
No, I'm not white knuckling it. And I did go through a time where I did. And so if I were to say it to anybody, I had to go through a time where it felt very uncomfortable, the new behavior for me, to not call, to sit it out, to call somebody in the program. But it eventually gets easy. There's no white knuckling it. It comes spontaneously, effortlessly, because these skills work. They work.
Well, you are just a beautiful example of what you can become by focusing on them and practicing them. You were so diligent. You're such a great student of the skills. Yeah, and yeah, wonderful, Steph. I definitely would like to give you an
Oh,
award for being the best.
I love it.
Congratulations.
Thank
You've
you,
won
Laura.
my best wife award. I mean, it's such a big accomplishment, isn't it? I mean, think of all you were saying, people who are divorced and how overrated divorce is. And so you put a lot of time and effort and energy and blood, sweat, and tears into something else. And this is what you've created. And I just love it. And I'm honored to get to be on the journey with you and see the inside of your marriage, how you've shared it so vulnerably with us to inspire us all. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Laura. And again, I just want to let you know how grateful I am to you for these skills, for all that you've done to create them and make all of this possible for somebody like me who really didn't know how to do it. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. I love that. All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. This is what's possible.
Mhm.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you, Laura.
What's it really like to be a relationship coach, and how do wildly successful relationship coaches get that way anyway? Find out by listening to the Successful Relationship Coach podcast with Master Relationship Coach Kathy Murray, one of the best relationship coaches in the world. She has helped so many relationship coaches become wildly successful, including me. She shares her secrets every week on the Successful Relationship Coach podcast. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week's podcast is for a long-lasting marriage. Say this phrase every day. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that every time we check out our groceries at Costco and they ask us if we want a box, John says, "I don't box, but I'll wrestle you for this shopping cart."